future. Dan has is in the 36th year in the industry of network marketing and direct sales. He got started. Dan, you got started around 10 years old, didn't you?
Thank God for these products, right?
Yeah, thank God for these products. He got
Yeah.
started in his early 30s. Dan's a legend in this industry. He's the founding distributor in NHT. Dan and I were the first two distributors that signed the application. Yes, we had an application back then in January 2001. We had a vision to go global all over the world, from every town, village, country, continent. And now we're launching our 51st market, country of Colombia, and we're just weeks away based on the last information we got this morning. So Dan is a guy that you really need to listen to. In June 23rd, 1993, when I got started in this industry, I'm sitting in the back of the room. I brought my brother with me. I went to the back of the room because I thought, okay, if I didn't like what I saw, I would be able to leave the room very quickly. And I'm sitting in the back of the room, and within minutes, I had, I would say, a very spiritual moment in my life. I knew from head to toe, God was speaking to me from head to toe, that this was going to be the vehicle to my dreams, because I had fallen in love with my dream. And I knew right away at that moment that this was going to be the vehicle of my dreams. And Dan was one of those speakers that day, and he talked about his dreams. And I connected with Dan so much because of his story, because of his passion, because of his commitment. And I knew he was in love with his dream. I knew he was in love with his dream. So I'll turn it over here to Dan. I'm grateful for our partnership 31 years later. And like you said, we're going to have another major run here the next 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Joey, thanks very much. You can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good. And the visual's good, right?
Visual's great.
Great. Okay. Thanks, buddy, for that kind introduction. I think for all of us, well, first of all, welcome all of our English speaking, English listening, English connecting viewers. And we do qualify that because Joe and I, we were on with Japan earlier this morning. I think it was 7 Tokyo time when we were on that call. Thanks, bud. So we've been doing these calls this week. For Russia, the Latin community, which is South America, really, Peru, Mexico, Bolivia, Colombia. We're just seconds away from getting into Colombia, and really all of South America, where we will be in the next 5 to 10 years. So, we're having a lot of fun here in just the last few days. It's part of the business that Joe and I just do love the most, and that's connecting with all of you, whether you're new, you're a leader, you've been in the business for some time, wherever you are in the business. This is something we just love doing. So we're connecting with you today on literally that, wherever you are in the business, and how to help you advance your business regardless of where you are. I'm going to be actually asking Joe the very first question, but gang, most of you do know, I believe, if you've been with us for any period of time, that we've been around for over 23 years, and that Joe and I basically founded the company. I was the first distributor. Joe was the second. And I think for a lot of you, you've heard the story, but if you haven't, think about where you are right now in the business. Just think about it. Where are you? Where are you in the business? What are the resources that you have around you? What is the legacy behind us, the legacy that we're going to create? But what is behind us? Over 23 years, going into our 24th year here of business, nearly $3 billion in business, multiple products in multiple markets, some with Nobel Prize winning research, global ambassadors, and we can say it. People have become multimillionaires, and that is a fact, and we have to qualify that from a compliance standpoint. Not everyone can achieve that, obviously, but anyone can. Not everyone does, but anyone can. We've proven that. So, that's just a glimpse of what we've done, from all the stuff in Fortune magazine, 2 years in a row being the fastest growing publicly traded company globally, being the top company with Jeffries from a publicly traded standpoint to invest in. Being on NASDAQ, all of this stuff where we are today and all of the resources around you. Nearly 24 years ago, 2001, Joe and I got started with one product. It wasn't even a guy's product. It was Allure. It was called Viacreen back then. A ladies' product in one market, basically Canada, the United States. We had one website that was breaking down every day. We had one brochure that wasn't even in color and didn't even have the correct spelling. So we have all of this, and we had issues in that first year in terms of retailing the product with the challenges that we had in Canada with the HPB, which is the Health Protection Branch. They shut us down several times in that first year, saying that we couldn't hold presentations and meetings because of approval processes. You would just believe all the stuff that we had in that first year. But Joe and I had a vision that we would become much bigger than where we were. We realized that we understood deep-rooted belief that we would be in multiple markets around the world. We would have multiple products around the world. We would have global ambassadors around the world. And we were starting from scratch. Hardly any leverage other than a big vision, a big dream, and a conviction of belief that we would. None of you that are on this call, all of you leaders, were not with us at that time, but you were. But you did become a part of our team and organization. That's a given. Where are you now in the business? So it doesn't matter where you are, but think about what you have around you in terms of resources, the stability, the strength, and all of that you've got around you. Joe and I did that from scratch, from below zero in terms of leverage, scalability, all of that. Vision, belief, and conviction that one day we would get there, and we did. Where can we go today? We can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. It's up to you to go out and get it. It won't come to you. You've got to go out and chase it. You've got to go out and get it. So in saying that, all of that, Joe, I'm going to ask you this, is that we were the first global ambassadors. We were basically the first ones to get to rank 1, the first ones to get to rank 2, the first ones to get to every single rank in the company. Now, literally tens of thousands have gone on to do that since day one. Asking you, if you had to start from scratch now, and you're building your group and your organization, starting from scratch, what would you do over the next 90 days to get to the first rank or get to the next rank? What would you do now? Over to you, buddy.
This is a question I can tackle in so many areas, Dan. So guys, here's what I did. And the first step was my mindset. I knew that it would take massive commitment. For those of you who know me very well, loyalty and commitment are in my top 5 values in life. Like I'm massively, when I commit to something, I can truthfully tell you all that I've never quit on anybody. Once I've made a commitment, I'm in. So I came in with an all-in attitude. And I'll tell you what an all-in attitude to me was. And I'll go back when I first got started in the industry in 1993. To me, it was attending all meetings, attending all events, attending all conference calls. I would be that person that would show up to everything and anything. I knew as a leader, potential leader, because I didn't have much of a team back then, that I needed to lead by example. I needed to show this perfect universe that God created, that I wanted this dream, that I would show up to everything. If you take it back to athletics, and I always like to use that analogy, professional athletes, for someone to become a hockey player in the NHL or a baseball player in the NBA or a soccer player in some of the top clubs and countries in Europe, they have to be all in their diet, in their workout regime, and they're practicing over and over and over again. If they're all in, they're never going to make it. Never in a million years, no matter how talented they are. So for me, there is a difference between doing the business than driving the business. Most people are doing the business. They show up once in a while. Oh, I can miss that training. For example, this training here today, I've seen Dan and Joe 1,000 times. I don't need to see it again. But it's not about that. It's about what are you leading? How are you leading? Being in front of that row and showing your people, even though I've seen it 1,000 times, that one extra time can take you over the top. And you're not doing it just for yourself, you're doing it for your people. Another way of being all in is I was on a phone call with someone the other day who was a top leader who just joined our organization. He's been in the industry, a 7-figure earner. And he was telling me through a process that he was teaching one of his new reps that they had told him that they followed up with someone to meet with him the next day. And he went ahead and said, no, one time is not enough. You don't understand people. You got to follow up a second time, a third time. So he had that person follow up a second and third time, knowing full well that if he just did it once, chances are that person's not going to show up. A second and third time, he is driving the business. And that is the first mentality that I have coming in, not just in the industry, but when I got started with NHT, I knew it needed to become an all-in. I needed to participate this business model in my lifestyle, make it a part of my lifestyle. So the second thing, being all in, is I knew I needed to change my identity. Okay, so it's amazing to me, and you see it in this industry all the time, in other businesses where people are joining companies like they're starting a new diet, thinking that company, that compensation plan, that product is going to make them successful, that will take them over the top. And 99.9% of the time, outside of timing, guys, it's never going to change. They may have a blip in that first year or the first 3 months, but it'll always go back to where their skill set is. So I knew I needed to change my identity. When you change your identity, you change your life. So I knew I needed to be, when I was 25 years old, getting started in the industry, I knew I needed to become a better person, a different person on my journey to success. So how did I do that? Well, before I get into that, let me share with you just one quick example why identity is so powerful. So a couple of years ago, they did a study here in North America, Canada, United States, and Canada, United States, and Mexico. And they had did a study, these researchers, on the top 10 most unhealthy professions. Top 10. Number 3 were doctors. Number 4 were nurses. Number 1 that had the most obesity and health challenges were hotel maids, housekeepers. So when the researchers looked at the data, it wasn't logical. These housekeepers had the most exercise in all the other professions. They walked the most. They had the most physical work. They're going up and down the stairs. So it wasn't logical to them. So they took 1,000 housekeepers from these 3 countries and sat down, the researchers sat down with each and one of these housekeepers. And they shared the data to these housekeepers. And they shared them, do you realize that you're doing over 10,000 steps a day? Do you see the experts in this field tell you that in order to be in the top 5% of exercise, you need to do at least 10,000 steps a day. If you do that, you're all well on the way of health. Do you realize that you're moving mattresses, heavy mattresses, going up and down the stairs, moving furniture? Do you realize how much strength training that you're doing compared to the rest of the population? So they had built their identity around their exercise of their job. 6 months later, just 6 months, they brought these hotel housekeepers back And out of those 1,000 housekeepers, 96% of them, 96% of them improved their health dramatically, lost weight, and most of their health challenges went away. So what changed is they changed their identity of how they saw their job. When they saw their job as exercise, their body followed suit. They didn't do anything else. So we can all have examples like this in our life. You know, a lot of people ask me, Joe, when you do trainings, why do you stand up? It changes my energy. It changes my identity. I'm able to perform much better. When I bought my first $2,000 suit, okay, and I grew up like most of us, and my dad, I remember as a kid, when my sister was getting married, I was a teenager, we went out to buy suits. And there was $100 suits, $1,000 suits plus. And I wanted the $1,000 suits. And my dad says, Joe, that $100 suit is the same as a $1,000 suit. All you're doing, they're made in the same factory, but all you're doing is paying for the brand name. And I grew up like that. But when I bought my first $1,000 plus $2,000 suit, I walked differently. I felt better about myself. My whole identity changed. So there's a number of ways that we can change our identity. Our first way that we can do it, and it takes a little longer, is by working on our skill sets every single day, our mindset. It's even more important today than any time in the history of mankind, because the internet is poisoning our world. You know, with all the huge positives, massive positives that the internet has given us, social media, the negatives are just as bad or probably even worse with regards to mental health. So we need to, because of this bombardment of information, we need to develop our mindset where that stuff and awareness does not bother us. You know, I've had so many friends since the pandemic. I've gone down the route of conspiracy theories, you know, really smart, educated people. And they got into a rabbit hole. And I can see the consequences of what's happened over the last couple of years to their lives, because they became in a rabbit hole and they were feeding their mind, stacking after stacking after stacking after stacking. When you can create that stacking over time, you will have issues. Garbage in, garbage out. So working on myself every day, I started doing that an hour a day back 30 years ago, and the stacking over the years changed my identity in so many ways. The other way that I've changed my identity is through asking questions. You know, one of the most, probably arguably, not even arguably, the most influential person that's walked this planet, you know, has probably been Jesus Christ. In Matthew 7:7, you know, for those that are not Christian, you can just read that paragraph. And most other major books on religion and spirituality talk about this. He talked about asking the right questions. I'm paraphrasing here. Ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you shall find it. He didn't say ask the right questions. He understood the power of asking questions. So a few weeks ago, I had one of our leaders overseas in Asia. She was having some difficulty in her business that hasn't been growing. And she's been asking me questions. Joe, my business is not growing. I don't understand why. I'm doing all the right things. You know, I'm recruiting losers in my business the last 6 months. Those were her words. And I shared with her that the law of resonance, which means, and it's even more powerful than the law of attraction. Law of resonance means the universe will always give back in how you see the world. So for example, if you believe your spouse is lazy, what's going to show up in your world is she's going to give you, or her or him, all kinds of reasons for you to continue to believe that that person is lazy. It's how the world works. So when you learn, so what's been happening with her, because she's asking all the wrong questions, this perfect universe that God's created, is giving her exactly what she's asking. So I learned many years ago to start asking the right questions, which changed my identity. Why am I attracting incredible leaders into my organization every day and helping my team do the same thing? What is a better question? So what is the universe going to do right now? It's going to start searching and giving me the answer to that question. Why am I so great at making, keeping, and multiplying money? Why do avalanches of abundance come down to me for my dreams, goals, and intentions? So when you start asking the right questions, massive things happen to your identity in life. And we've seen examples in our life on a consistent basis. So that's the second thing. The third thing, guys, is an action plan. So when I got started in NHT, I knew that, and Dan and I knew that we couldn't rely on anybody else. We were NHT, we were the foundation of the company, and we had to hit it on a consistent basis. And we knew the two things that was going to make us money and grow, sharing the product and sharing the business. And then the third thing, we've started focusing a little later on helping people do those two things. So my first month in NHT, in my first year, I set a goal that I was going to talk to 3 people a day. I wasn't as good at it as I am now, but over time, the practicing, and I started just sharing the product, sharing the business through developing my skill sets. And I didn't care. Over the first year with NHT, I had close to 850 no's. And today, people still think I'm lucky that I got the right time in the right place. I had over 850 no's, rejection after rejection, people laughing at us because we had a product which they called a sex product. What am I going to do with that? They just didn't understand. And years later, they call us lucky. So the action plan is critical to, and consistency in changing your identity, consistency in action. And these are simple disciplines that I've consistently done all these years later. So when we talk about action plan, I'm going to give you a script that everyone can do. So one of the challenges in our business is people find it very easy to share our products, incredible products that we have. We all can agree with it. We have a stem cell product that Stem Renew and many of other product lines that can build a billion-dollar company by itself. And one of the challenges, because we have so many incredible products, people think, what should I focus on? Well, one of the products that we have, Stem Renew, has been proven for 6 years. We all know the miraculous health challenges that this has overcome, this product, all due to this technology. So basically what I do is I ask people, how important is health to them? Okay, so what you want to do is you want to get them set up to answering the right questions. So most people obviously are going to say yes. And then I come back and say, I'm so happy that you and I have the same values. You could probably agree that without our health, we have nothing. We can have all the money in the world, but we don't have health, we have nothing. And most people will say, yeah, of course, Joe. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then I say, I don't know if this is for you, but a few years ago, I just came across an incredible technology and stem cell technology that is changing the world's health. Thousands of people's health have been changed all around the world. And there's also a business model behind this where thousands of people are earning not only extra income, but they're doubling and tripling their full-time income working part-time. I don't know if this is for you. Would you be open to taking a look at some of the information on this incredible product? So what I've done right now, I've exposed the product, given them enough. I got yeses to their questions, and I've also planted the seed of the business behind that. So now I'm going to send them, most people are going to say yes, I'm going to send them a video of Dr. Ben, the training you can get up on Steam Team under product training. It's on there on YouTube. and I'll send it to them, and get them to make me a commitment to watch that in the next day, and I'll book a time the next day, and I'm always going to bring someone else with them. And between that, I'm going to send them some testimonials on that product. Very simple. Everybody can do that. Everybody can find 3 people a day, Dan. And you do 3 people a day in your first couple months, you will rank at rank 1. You will help people qualify at rank 1, guaranteed. So Dan, over to you. There's a question that I asked in the early years when we started to work together. What is your daily routine of success every day?
Okay, great question. I think it's 2 parts to that. Just from a personal standpoint, and I'll back up a little bit too, and to kind of preface that, Joe, because there's 2 things. Personally, what do I do just in my personal space and personal world? Because it's important for all of you to know how that changed. And it all changed because of what Joey's talking about, mindset. And that mindset really was determined because of my philosophy. Your philosophy will determine your attitude, which will determine, the actions that you take, that will determine your results, which will determine really your lifestyle and where you're at, where your space is at today. I'll give an example. 1988, prior to getting involved in the industry, I was in my early 30s at the time. And prior to getting involved, I'd been in the corporate world, been there, I guess, about 10 years, 2 years in private business. And I lost everything in the spring of 1988. I was living with my parents. I was on government assistance. I was more than bankrupt. I was massively in debt. As Joey shared with you, I've been in the hospital with colitis and Crohn's disease. I was at the lowest point of my life. I had nowhere else to go. I was really the worst off person that I knew of at that time in 1988 when I was introduced to the industry. How did all of that change? Not just financially, which the opportunity has done within this industry, but how did I get my health back? How did I get my spiritual connection back? My relationships back? My everything came back. It changed because of my philosophy and the mindset and who I surrounded myself with and who I was listening to, who I stopped listening to. There's the law of association. There's association, limited association, and disassociation. And there's some where, you really have to cut the cord on some relationships. Others, you've just got to limit that association. And there's some people that you really need to spend a lot more time with. And that's what I saw in 88 when my health was at an all-time low. I had to start listening and watching and spending time and really listening to people that were in a very healthy space. I started hanging out and listening to people that had better relationships, couples that had been together a long time. I got more spiritually connected, and I had been disconnected for a long time. So those disciplines, and I'll give you an example, just what I understood for me to get my health back. And my God, gang, we've got the greatest products to help you with your health today. But I understood back then 3 things that were the cornerstone to health. And I needed that back in 88. Rest, exercise, and nutrition. And it was the proper exercise, making sure that I did get that rest. And my God, we've got the best things that you can put into your body today, bar none, around the world. And it doesn't matter where you go in the world. You can go from culture to culture, country to country, person to person, and they may say this, they may say that about the business, about anything to do with the world and the space or whatever's going on. But 2 things are for sure. Everyone wants a better way of life, which is our opportunity. And number 2, everyone loves our products. They all love our products, no matter what country, market, wherever you go. Those 2 things are a given, and those are 2 things that we have with our opportunity in our business and who we are with NHT. So when I got involved in the industry way back and looking at my disciplines, I'll give you 2 disciplines that I've got. The personal family, just my personal disciplines, and number 2, the disciplines to the business. What I did in 88 and what I do today. Every single day, I make sure I'm getting proper rest. I am eating right. And I am exercising every single day. There's probably one day I'll take off, which is Sunday. That's my real spiritual day. So Sunday is that day. But sometimes I still will exercise while I'm listening to something that is feeding my mind and feeding my brain and feeding my soul. But it's those simple habits, those disciplines that I do every day. Remember, what you practice in private, you're rewarded for in public. Those disciplines that you repeat over time will take you to success. That simple error in judgment repeated over time will take you out. And it was the people that I listened to back in 1988, that helped me with that from an exercise standpoint. Just the little things that I was doing, those little habits that would not make a difference overnight, but they would certainly make a difference over time. And in the business, I asked the same question. What did I have to, first of all, with my health? I was told that. What did I need to do in terms of relationships? And I needed, and I started listening to those people. But I listened to the people back in 88, which Joe and I instilled in our system, in our model. We've got 1.5 million distributors and customers around the world. That is no accident. That has happened by design. For us to get duplication, we have to keep it simple. You know, they say complexity is the enemy of execution. Goals and dreams will not happen without action. Thoughts determine what you want. Action determines what you get. So in those disciplines, they had to be simple. Those little habits that we would do every single day had to be simple, that everyone could do it. Someone told me years and years ago, Joe Tow Truck and Sally next door had to be able to do this. It had to be dodo proof, dano proof, simple, basic fundamentals that anyone, everyone could do every day. Those three things were sharing the product and sharing the opportunity. Still to this day, I make sure at least one person, new person that I have control of, hears about this product or hears about this opportunity. Online, offline, sideline, doesn't matter. I make sure down, whatever it is, I personally will talk to somebody about the product or the opportunity every day. When I'm on a massive blitz, when I do these 90-day hits, which we'll do 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, where we circle up, round them up, and we'll just go out and hit it for 90 days. That's when I'm hitting, like Joe has shared with you, with that brand new person, 5 to 10 people that you're talking to at least. I remember when I talked to my mentor and my coach, when I got started here in the industry 35 plus years ago, he was talking to 30 to 40 people a day, and we didn't have the internet back then. Gang, when we started in 2001, the internet was in its infancy. We didn't have cell phones. We had cell phones, but we did not have an iPhone when Joe and I launched this company. We we were still using fax machines. We didn't have Zoom. We did have conference calls. We didn't have WhatsApp. We're doing what we're doing right now. Joe and I started from scratch, black and white brochures, websites that didn't work, one product that wasn't a guy's product, it was a lady's product in one country. We did all of that. You've got all of this around you in terms of leverage and scalability. Those are the two things that allow you to grow, which will bring you value to what you have, is leverage and scale. And we can scale now like never before. In 2001, Joe and I were in one market. That was big, North America. But right now, you basically have the planet. That's bigger. And no one has heard of us, no matter where you are in the world. No one's heard of us. You talk to 10 people on your street, wherever you are right now, they have not heard of our products, have not heard of our opportunity. And those two groups that you're going to be talking to are either going to love our products or they're going to want a better way of life, or both. So it's not going to come to you. You got to chase it. Every single day, I share the product, share the opportunity, or I promote the next incentive and promotion that we have that's going on. Guys, it will not happen by it coming to you. As Joe had shared with you, the good book talks about it. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened onto you. It is a fundamental that's going on for a couple of thousand years that works. And one of the greatest teachers that we ever had, a little over 2,000 years ago, my dad's mentor, my late father, God bless him, his mentor, he had to go out and sponsor. And not all of them work out. He sponsored 12 guys frontline, and one of them really messed up. but they kept on going. That legacy is still going on today. We plan on doing that. We are doing that with ours right now. So, in terms of the simple habits and the rituals that I do every day, it's not complicated. Because if you complicate, you cannot duplicate. Keep this baby simple. Simple, simple, simple. What you have control of is sharing the product, sharing the business, promote the next incentive and promotion that we've got that's going on. And for all of you guys, I mean, I look at the markets around the world where we're going on the next one. This last one has been Dubai, has been Paris. Right now, the Europeans that are on this call, you got a cruise that you can qualify for in the Caribbean with the Latin team, with the Mexicans, with Mexico, with Peru, with Colombia that is opening up in virtually seconds. India that's on this call, the North Americans, Japan, Russia. You're going to the Maldives. I mean, that is a very, very, very exotic location and trip. That is what I'm promoting every single day. The products I share, the opportunity I share, the incentive and promotion that we can qualify for, I share every single day. Joey, I'm going to ask you the next question. If you right now want to have the largest team and the largest group, and they always measure your business by the number of people that you have at the next incentive. If you want to measure your business and how great it's doing besides your BV, but your BV will follow this, is you have the most amount of people at the next incentive and next promotion. Joe, what would you do? Because I remember you back in the early days, and you would have always, you were focused on this. And gang, you got to recognize this. When Joe joined the business, he wasn't the most skilled guy, the most slick guy. He didn't have the most expensive suit. He didn't have the most expensive car in the parking lot. He eventually did. And he had the most expensive suit and the best watch and the best car and a beautiful home and multiple homes now in multiple countries. None of that in the beginning. But he showed up at the plate with none of the skill sets that a lot of the high, slick entrepreneurs, maybe business guys from Bay Street, Wall Street that we have in North America would show up. But Joe showed up with desire, work ethic, and coachability and went out and hit it. And I remember the first big event in Orlando, Florida, way back in the 90s. Garcia had a whole whack of people there. I couldn't believe the people that he had there. And this was taking them from Toronto to Florida, which is 3.5 hours in the air. Not one of them flew. You heard me. Not one of them came on a plane. What did they do? They drove. They drove for 2.5 days, 3 days to get there. Joey, what would you do today to get the biggest group at the next incentive, the next promotion for all of you that are in India, North America, Japan, Russia? Wait a minute, haven't got the Russians on this call. We've got all of the English-speaking markets on this call. But for all of you that are going to the Maldives, or you're qualifying for that cruise on the ship, how do you get the biggest group? How do you get the biggest team? Over to you, buddy.
You know, Dan, another way that we can help people change their identity is working in teams, working in groups. And I find when people are working in groups, committed people are working in groups, it's like that tide that's coming in, those waves that are coming in Hawaii, when they're surfing and the big waves just destroy people. Well, in this case, these big waves that come in push people all along when we grow in groups. This is why globally, churches have prayer groups, Bible study groups, other spiritual activities that they do in groups, even trips, because they know when we do things in groups, amazing thing happens. Globally right now, Dan, we went just through probably the greatest pandemic ever, certainly in our lifetime. And one of the things that we have learned in our business is there is still today, despite all the technologies, all what we're doing today and communicating around the world and how we can tape this and send it all over the world, there's no greater tool than live meetings and events, face-to-face, belly-to-belly marketing. You know, a lot of the newer age marketers say, well, we can duplicate it, but for long-term results, you can't. You cannot, no matter how much AI you have right now, how much technology you have, how many tools you have, you cannot replicate the feeling that getting together with other people. You know, I'm just thinking back in June 23rd, 1993, if I'm sitting in the back of the room, I was sitting in the back of the room, but if I went on to Zoom, 99%, I know this with all my heart, I probably wouldn't have the same reaction because all I did was pick up the energy. It's why churches get together, mosques and temples get together on a consistent basis. That's how you grow a congregation. That's how you grow your spiritual group. That's how you grow a network marketing group. So keeping this all in mind, you know, I encourage all of you that have teams all around the world, you know, start encouraging them. And that's what Dan and I are pushing, having those weekly meetings, whether it's from their house. I remember when Garth got started in Slovenia, Ljubljana, Slovenia, and we weren't even open in Europe yet. And he was packing his living room. Then he moved to a hotel and office buildings because the people got so big in the events. So the meetings feed the events globally. And then when those leaders leave those events, we still have those weekly meetings that are just consistently sharing the product, sharing the business. And that's how you grow long-term in all these markets. The other thing you can do with your leadership, and what I would do, and I'm doing now right around the world, is having 90-day action plan groups. So what you want to do is you want to go through the whole team, and you're going to ask them, how committed are you to going to your next incentive, Maldives or the cruise? How committed are you to growing up in rank? If you're 100% committed and you're all in, then I'll allow you to be part of this 90-day action team that we're putting together here. So you go to your teammates, ask those questions, get their commitment, really help them understand what the commitment will take. And once a week, what you want to do with this 90-day action plan is you want to bring your upline leaders on these calls to support you. And what you're getting out of them is their personal action plans, their personal dream, their double down in their commitment to the incentive trips and ranking with everybody. So what happens when you make yourself accountable to the group, the last thing that we want to be is look stupid in front of our peers, look weak in front of our peers. So this is a great way to expand your team from 10 to 100 to 1,000 when you have these 90-day action teams. Even if you have one on your team that says yes, that one can be a 10, that 10 can be 100, that 100 can be 1,000. And you make everyone accountable to, so every week, what you want to do is those people will have time, 10 minutes on, and share with everybody what they did that previous week. What were some of their challenges? What were some of their wins? How can maybe some business tips? So now you're all working together to get to the next rank, to get to the incentive trip. So Dan, for those of you who don't know Dan's background, but Dan's dad was awarded, he's passed away since then, the Order of Canada. So the Order of Canada is the top medal that you can get, recognition that you can get in your country for your service. So Dan grew up in many different countries because his dad was a missionary. He was passionate about helping people. And one of the things that Dan's dad did is he raised millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for his charity projects all over the world. I think there are streets named after Dan's dad. He's impacted the world. But Dan, I remember Dan telling me about a lot of the limited beliefs that he grew up with regarding money, the relationship around money. And this is a big challenge in our society, in a particular way that you grew up, in the way that you saw money, and how your dad was 100% focused on his service. Can you help share with people just kind of a little insight like that and how you overcome those limited beliefs to be the success that you are today?
Yeah. Okay. Sure, Joe. Appreciate that. Okay. So the quick on that, just to expand maybe a little bit more. Yeah, my dad was a United Church minister here in Toronto, Canada. Um, he eventually, well, he his initial um, 9 years at university, I remember him sharing with me as a little guy, and me understanding that. Yeah, he had more degrees than a thermometer, as they said, but his vocation was the ministry. But we spent 5 years in Africa. We spent 2 years in northern Canada, actually on a lake, on an Indian reserve, um, which was an island called, it was in God's Lake. That's what it was called, God's Lake in northern Manitoba, which is one of the most northern parts of Canada. There's basically ice there 6, 7 months of the year. And when I lived there as a child, there was no electricity, no running water, no plumbing, no. They didn't have. I didn't even know if they had phones up there. It was a very, very, very remote area of Canada. And I'm saying all of that, even though my father came from a fairly privileged family financially, and so did my mother. They both did, but they together chose a different calling, and that calling was the ministry as missionaries. So we went from that after 2 years in northern Canada to Africa, and we spent 5 years in northern Rhodesia, which is now Zambia. Northern Rhodesia got its independence and is now known as Zambia. So we spent 5 years there, and maybe a little bit more of a civilized part, if you can believe that, in Africa, in the Congo, which was Kenya, Nairobi. The little towns that we lived in were called Chingola and Kitwe. I'll never forget it. And I remember a fair bit of it because I was still, I was at an age where I could remember a lot of that. But what I do remember is similar to what Joe was sharing with you about, again, it's mindset and philosophy. Uh, I don't know if there's a greater path than this one in achieving greatness. It says it in the good book that you can achieve greatness by serving the masses, by serving many. Well, that's what my dad was doing, and in his space, he was achieving greatness. He was ordered. It was called the Order of Canada, as Joe shared with you, which is the highest honor a Canadian civilian can receive, and he received that with our Prime Minister and along with a handful of other dignitaries that we have here in Canada. Bottom line, I was not taught anything from a financial standpoint. Zero in our home. Zero. Um, I I understood love. I got an abundance of that, which I now share it within my immediate circle and to the world. But I wasn't taught anything about. I was nothing about financial skills for building a business. Anything about finance as far as establishing any type of a sound financial future for my family. I didn't get any of that from my immediate family. I had to learn that, and I learned that on, as they say, on the street. And that street was this industry and this opportunity. So what happened is I changed who I'd been listening to for, I guess, the 12, 13, 14, 15 years of my adult life, but what I would listen to in my adolescent years, as a young guy. And uh, there was none of that about paying yourself first. Uh, the disciplines from a financial standpoint or understanding the entrepreneurial side of business and paying that kind of a price and what to do. I had to learn all of that on my own as an adult in my 30s, but I learned it from the people that were there and going there. And those are my early mentors and coaches. If I hadn't have crashed, and crashing was when I was 32. I lost everything. Uh, Having to move back in with my parents and going on government assistance and my going bankrupt and losing everything, all of it. I realized that I had to change who I listened to. And I had to listen to people that were in a very financially sound place. So, for all of you, if you're not in a good financially sound place, if your business is not in a not just a sustainable place, but a growing space, you've got to be hungry enough to want to learn and understand it. If you're not hungry enough, it won't happen. They say the teacher arrives when the student is ready. So if you're not ready, if you're not open, as they say, that's how the parachute works best when it's open. If your mind isn't open and you're not receptive, no matter who the teacher is, it is not going to happen for you. If you're passive about your NHT future and where you want to be, if you want a good financial future, if you want a strong NHT organization, you have to be serious about this and serious about learning and then serious, very serious about taking action. So those things, it's not complicated to understand this business. It's not. This is not a complicated business. If it was, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. But, we Joe and I didn't build a $1.5 million, 1.5 million um, database of people, distributors, and customers around the world by accident. This happened through a model and a system that works, but it has to happen through simplicity. Our system, our model, and what we do, and our whole philosophy is very simple. You can all do it. Not everyone's going to achieve global ambassador and a seven-figure financial income, but everyone can. Everyone can. Not everyone will, but it's up to you. If you want it, it's here. If you want it, it can happen, but you have to want it enough to go out, take the action to make it happen. Joe, hopefully that helps. Over to
You
you,
know,
buddy.
just to double on that, Dan, I'll share a quick story about that, about wanting it. So one year, 2007, 8, maybe 9, I went over to help Gart's team in Europe. Garth Wright, who's the founding distributor in Europe. So I was supposed to meet him in Prague, and I think we had an issue with weather or a flight. So it was a very aggressive trip where I went to 9 countries and in 9 days, basically. And Garth was for part of that trip. From Hungary. I remember us driving from Hungary to Ljubljana, and most of those 7 days. So I'd always have to take the flight in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to make sure that just in case there was weather, that I would have another flight. Typically in Europe, you can get another flight. So the day would be I'd get into a city, get some clothes on, shower, and then go into meetings all day long. So there was no rest. And then at night, we would do an event, and then we would wrap up. And then obviously after that, the local leadership would want us to go to a dinner. So of course, I'd never say no. I never dismiss those. And we would have dinner. And most times, Dan, I was going back to my hotel room at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and then first time flight out, an hour of sleep, and then onto the next trip. So that week, I probably had, less than 7 hours sleep, I think. And I was running like you wouldn't believe. I was just hitting it very hard. And so the last event was in Italy, in San Remo, Italy. So I flew into Nice, and from Nice, I checked in my hotel, put on my suit. Then the driver was downstairs. Driver took me, and we drove to San Remo, which is about 2 hours down the coast. And it's an incredible drive because when you go down the French Riviera and then you go into Italy, it's like, you're in two different paradigms. It's two different worlds. So I get into San Remo. I'm doing meetings all day long, and then there's an event at night at 8 o'clock. We finish the event at 10:30, 11, and now they want to go to dinner. And I'm thinking, okay, I've had no sleep the whole week, and I got to get back because I have a flight 6 o'clock in the morning from Nice to Paris, Paris to home. So I stay, again, do what I need to do, and it's now 1:30 in the morning, and I need to get back. So the driver picks me up, and we drive back, get back to my hotel at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, and the receptionist who was working the night shift there, she said, Mr. Garcia, you haven't used your hotel room. I go, no, I haven't used my hotel room. So I got my luggage, and I decide to get to the airport, and the airport doors are not even open. So I bang on the door. They let me in. They even let me go through security very quickly because the Nice airport's very small, and business lounge is closed. Everything's closed. So they told me what gate it was. So I decided to go to that gate. And that's the last thing I remember, Dan. Next thing that happened to me is I woke up laying sprawled on the floor with about 55, 60 people in a circle looking at me, and they called the paramedics on me. And what happened is, as soon as I got to the gate, my mind just shut down. I no longer have to be focused. And when you're in that mode, and I collapsed. And I'm sharing this story not because you have to do that in our business. I learned better after that trip. But I was willing, Dan, to do whatever it took, my service, like your dad did, in a whole different way, to do whatever it takes to help Garth in those times, to help our leaders in all these countries. I was willing to do whatever it takes because I was committed 100%. That's what all in does to you. And we all have those kind of stories in our lives and how we've been able to overcome incredible, massive things that we never thought could be possible. And we all have those type of stories. And you apply that same mindset here with NHT, there's no reason why you can't duplicate what our leaders right around the world have done. No reason. So one last question to you, Dan, is the vision when we started, we shared with everybody, is our goal was to be in every town, village, city, province, state, country, and continent. And, Colombia is going to be our 51st market that we're going to launch here. That's quite a remarkable achievement, 23 years later. And back then, all we could share was faith. Today, we can share results. So where do you see NHT in the next 10 years? What's your personal vision?
Excellent. Let me echo on what you were talking about, paying the price. From a sports standpoint, but if you could look at Gates, Jobs, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, a lot of my entrepreneurial heroes, sporting heroes. I know the price that my father paid in his space. Every hero that I've ever had has paid some kind of a price. I even see that with parenting and the price that mothers have paid for great athletes and looking after their kids and what they do, the price that they pay in parenting and looking after the household. It again comes down to that hunger, that desire, and what you want. Relative to ours and how the scale works from a business standpoint, and if you're new or you've been with us for a while, Joe and I both experience this, and all great leaders do. In the journey, you will be underpaid in the beginning for a period of time, and for some of you, for a fairly long period of time, you'll be underpaid. But then you'll be fairly well paid for a period of time. You stick with this business long term, stick with our vision and where we're going, you're going to be overpaid for a very, very long period of time. We've got people that are on this call. We've got a number of leaders that are getting paid, so many that are getting paid on business, getting paid on customers that they brought into the business over 20 years ago. They're still getting paid on it today. Customers are still reordering the product. Distributors and their team and their organizations are continuing to grow and develop and build. So that is the opportunity that you have long term. That's what's happened over the last 23 years. But over the next 10, like you said, Joe, that was my initial dream, to be in every home, to be in every village, to be in every town and every city and every province, every state, every country around the world. Eventually, we would be over time. And we're achieving that. We're achieving that goal and that dream. So 51 countries as we open up Colombia, 23 years and 51. I believe in the next 10, we will be at 100 countries. We're going to be opening a lot in the Far East. We will be into Africa, and we will be well into South America. So there's so much more in front of us. We've got three incredible cutting edge, because remember when Joe and I started off in this business, we didn't have iPhones. We had a website that didn't work. We only had one website, and as I said, it didn't work. We had that one, not even a colored brochure, black and white brochure. I mean, this is when we got started. So what we have that's coming, we have three incredibly cutting edge tools that will enhance and support and blow up your business globally. It doesn't matter what country and market that you're in. It doesn't matter. And this is coming in 24, along with new products, along with new countries, and along with global ambassadors that will be coming to a country near you, but new global ambassadors that will be qualifying this year as well. So the best is yet to come. The big money is yet to come. So lots in front of us, Joe, in 24 and beyond. Great call here, bud. Turn it back to you, man.
Great. Well, let's finish. I think we have time for one more question, or we're ready.
Do I have another question?
No, no. Do you have time for another question?
Oh, I have for another question? Yeah, I mean, it's
Do
go
that.
for it. Yep.
Okay, so managing. So one of the great aspects to building this business is it challenges us in leadership. So when times are not going well, because in business it's not logical to have consistent momentum, what did you do over your last 36 years and refocusing on what you needed to do to get that momentum back? And
Well,
we'll end with that
yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, every single time, Joe, and it's I did a talk with my coach, my initial coach, Jeff Roberti, a few months ago that we've got up has been viewed, I don't know how many times around the world, but a lot of what he shared with me back then, and I just went through it, is that, gang, think about, and it's common sense. You just think about when you've had the greatest growth in your business, and if you've never had growth in your business and you're just getting started, this is what you need to do. And we've talked about it on this call, but just reflect on what were you doing? A lot of people have had their greatest growth in their business in the beginning when they didn't know that much. You've heard this thing about ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice, but it's just the enthusiasm, the excitement, and taking action. So, all I did every single time, whenever there was a plateau in my business over the last 35 years, is I did a reset and a reload, and I hit it, and I hit it hard. You know how I am with you, Joe. I mean, you and I we get aggressive with the stuff that we need to do to get it done, and that is taking action, and that is just, we know what to do. You know what to do. Most of you know what to do. It's just doing what you know, and that is massively going out and taking action, and that is new people, new prospects, and we have got more tools right now to serve us. They say that money is a poor master, but it's a wonderful servant. Technology is the same way, I believe. Don't let it be your master. It's these relationships that are the master and the connection that you'll have that will sustain your business long term. But let technology serve you. Let these incredible tools that we have serve you. And the incredible tools that we have. Look at the incentives and the promotions. We've got the IRP next week. You should be all massively next week getting everyone on your team, getting yourself qualified on the IRP. You know where you're going to be. Is it the Maldives or is it going to be on the cruise? Which one? And how many people are you going to have on it? You need to massively attack it. If you're hungry enough, you'll hit it. If you're not hungry enough, this probably is not going to happen. Joe and I, we talked about this just on one of our previous calls in the last 2 days. People have asked me, Dano, and one of the biggest questions I've probably had over the last 35 years, how do you detect a leader when you bring somebody into the business? How do you know that that person, what is your gut? What is your reading that person? Are they going to become a leader in this business over the next 90 days, 6 months? How can you tell right away? I said, well, there's a few things that you can check on just in terms of checking the boxes if that person's going to be a leader. Number one, first of all, is that person calling you? If you bring somebody into the business, brand new, in the first 2 or 3 or 4 days, are they chasing you or are you chasing them? Are you calling them or are they calling you? If you're having to chase them, not a good sign. If they're chasing you every day, all day, multiple times a day, that's a really good sign. That's in the very first week. Also, number two, in the first week, ask them how many times have they not sold the product, but shared the product. If in that first 7 days, they've shared the product with a dozen to 15 to 20 people, share the product, that's a really good sign. If they showed it with just a handful, if they shared it just with a handful, that's okay. That's all right. But that 12 to 15 people is real good. But they have not shown the product to anyone, not a good sign. The third sign, ask them in the first 7 days, how many times have they shared the opportunity? Is it a dozen, 15, or 20 times? That's a good sign. If they haven't shared it with anybody, that's not a good sign. And in the first 30 days, when you bring somebody into the business, the first 30 days, that person is on every call, every incentive, every promotional call, every Zoom call, every meeting, every event, everything in the first 30 days. That is a very good sign. If they're not on any calls, any Zoom calls, any conference calls, at any of the presentations, any of the meetings, not a good sign. Your good buddy here, Joe Garcia, when we got started off, he got started off back 30 years ago. Joe didn't come to the table with all the skill sets. Wasn't slick, wasn't polished. He was at every meeting, every presentation, sharing the product multiple times a day, sharing the opportunity multiple times a day, and he was chasing Dan Catto every day, multiple times a day. That was Joe. This can be you. Joe, over to you, buddy.
Right.
And great
And
call, man.
I'll end with one story, Dan. In 1969, there was a very famous study on the Pygmalion effect. So they took a teacher and they told this teacher that she's going to have 3 new students in her class that rank in the top 1% in their class. But they lied to her. These students were well below average. But they told the teacher, don't tell anybody that these kids are very special, unique, brilliant. Just treat them like they're, they're the same as everybody in the class. So they came back 6 months after the school year and looked at these 3 students. And these 3 students ranked in the top 1% in the country. They became brilliant. Why did they become brilliant? Well, the study confirmed that the teachers believed in these students so much because she was told they were brilliant students that her belief in them transferred into them. It's called the Pygmalion effect. And that is why Dan and I continue to lead the team right around the globe, because we believe in NHT. We believe in our team. I believe in everyone on this and will be watching in the future, their success. I believe in their greatness. I know that God does not make junk. God is made we are made in the likeness of God. We are all powerful. We can manifest anything we put our minds to. What's holding us back is our identity ourselves. We bought into the paradigm that this world give us, that we are separate from all the powers that we have on this universe, that only rich people are lucky, rich people are bad, that it's too difficult to go after our dreams. I failed so many more times before. Why am I going to do it now? All these paradigms that we've bought into our lives that are holding us back. But I'm telling you right now, I believe in all of you. I believe in your greatness so much that I'm going tonight, every day, praying for your success, praying for your wisdom, praying that you will get it one day and say, wow, I am that I am. I can accomplish anything I put my mind to. God and the universe always has my back. Always has my back. Why do I have my dreams and goals come to me with ease and speed? That's what I want for all of you. That's why Dan and I got up at 5 this morning to share our vision and our wisdom to our Japanese distributors, because we care. So I want to impart that Pygmalion effect over to you. Think about it. I believe in all of you. Dan believes in all of you. We love you all. Have an incredible, incredible day, incredible weekend. And let's make next week our best week ever, leading into March. And Dan, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Incredible wisdom that you've shared here today. And thank you.
Great stuff, Joey. And for all of you, IRP, one more week to go to qualify. Maldives, wherever you are, the cruise, wherever you are, and Paris, wherever you are. Be seeing you all soon. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.